Hi there. In this video we'll be covering how do I write a book about myself. It's not always easy to look in the mirror and think about our life, but it can also be such an empowering and inspiring process, not just for ourselves but for readers as well. By the end of this video you will learn how to write what you know, how to figure out what makes your story unique, and how to stay focused when writing. And stay tuned until the end of the video for an opportunity I really think you're going to enjoy. Let's dive in. When you think about writing a book about yourself and your life, it's so easy just to consider one topic to another topic. This happened to me, then this happened to me, then this happened to me. No one wants to read that. That's not the book that people want to read because they can't really learn from that. These are just a series of haphazard stories. That's not really the thing. The focus of writing a book about your life is really interpreting and taking those stories and figuring out what you learned from them. It's about digging much deeper, how those lessons and experiences shaped you in a way that can be understood by the reader, understood to better understand you, to better understand themselves. By seeing how you were shaped and how you adapted based on things that happened to you or experiences, the reader can then interpret that for themselves and really consider how their life connects to yours. They can put themselves in your shoes and see how you respond to the things and see how they respond to things. It's this shared experience of understanding, and it's so powerful when you can really tell a story about yourself that resonates and that connects to the reader. We all have uniqueness within ourselves. We all have something special or different or something that defines us in a way. And sometimes it's not easy to find that, but we really need to dig deep within ourselves. When you think about writing a book, you think about writing your story. What makes your story stand out? What makes your story different than every other book that's ever been written? If you can answer that question, you have the makings of a good book. Your book needs to be different than every other book that's out there, because otherwise, what's the motivation to want to read it? At the same time, there's this reader journey and reader focus of they want to get something out of this. You should want to get something out of this too. What's your reason? What's your motivation for writing your book? You should have some purpose or some feeling in the back of your mind about why you're writing this, what motivates you to write this. Otherwise, why put yourself through the trouble? It's so easy to want to put a book aside. If you don't have a good reason for writing it, it's going to be too much, too challenging, too difficult. You're not going to see the point. The juice has to be worth the squeeze in order for you to keep going with this. Otherwise, why? Don't do it. It's too hard. It's too hard to write a book. And I know it's kind of disingenuous for me to say it's too hard to write a book, after I've written or ghostwritten 30 books myself. But I know the struggle. I know what it feels like to go through this process. It's difficult and painful and challenging. Why do that if you don't have this deeper thing in mind? Figure out what that purpose is, and your whole story and message is going to become clearer. When you think about your uniqueness and you think about the reader journey, also consider how you're going to organize your story. The structure of your story means almost as much as the story itself. How are you structuring this? How are you organizing it? How are you putting the pieces together so the reader can really understand what you're trying to say? You can be so empowering and so impactful with the way that you structure your book. Is it a time jump? Does it involve multiple narrators? Do you go back and forth between these different elements? You can structure this in the most creative way that you can, as long as it makes sense to your story. But a lot of times, outline and structure are overlooked. You want to take the time to figure that out. You want to take the time to have a structure in place. That the structure is really going to tie all this stuff together. And, so you have the purpose and the reader focus, but you want to have a flow to the story that takes them from the beginning of the story to the end of the book and keeps them entertained and keeps them engaged. If you don't have a good structure for the book, it's going to really frustrate and annoy your reader and make them not want to keep going. Once you've kind of figured out all of these elements, and figuring out in a sentence why your message resonates, just simplify everything. Once you've done that, once you've simplified your message, figured out the outline, how are you going to get the stories out of your head and onto the page? How are you going to write ultimately. You could sit at a keyboard, you could type away, or you could talk into an audio recorder and talk through your stories and retain your voice that way. Whatever the case may be, find a way for you. Find a way that feels natural. Find a way that doesn't stress you out. If you're stressed out by just writing, you're not going to want to keep going with this book. Again, there's so many obstacles, so many challenges. You want to overcome them. Along with that, so often when people think about writing a book, they think about they themselves as the key storyteller. They think of themselves as the key focus of the book, which is fine. It's their book. But there's other people who have vantage points on your story who may have different perspectives. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe you saw it the wrong way. You want to know that before you publish the book. You want to know that before you're done writing. Your vantage point isn't the only vantage point. Maybe there's relatives or friends who you could interview and talk to and make sure that your stories are as strong as possible. Make sure your stories are accurate. You don't want to publish a book and find out later that you got the story wrong. That's embarrassing. You don't want to do that. Talk to people, get other vantage points, triangulate your story compared to theirs, get to the truth. The truth isn't just what you think it is, the truth is the truth. Get to actual truth. Get at the actual heart of the story, and you're going to then get more people buying into it because the people around you are like, man, this book was incredible. This book was accurate. How many times have you seen a story come out and somebody says, no, the story's not even real. It didn't happen like that. It's embarrassing. You don't want that. You don't want that kind of stain on this book. You want this to be as strong as possible and to galvanize people and generate the right amount of attention, the right type of attention. So definitely talk to people. Get more of your story because you don't actually have all the stories, probably. Even though you think that you do, some of the stories are in public records, newspaper accounts, other places, Ancestry.com, and then from other people's stories themselves. So there may be other places to find stories that aren't just from you. When thinking about writing your book, a lot of times people focus on having the time to write. I like having the focus to write, making sure that I'm as focused as possible, that I am sitting in the seat doing the work, but making the most of my time. Whether that means sitting at the keyboard and writing away, whether that means talking into an audio device and getting automatic transcription. Spend the focus to get it right. Cut out digital distractions, mute your phone, silence that phone. Give yourself the free mindset, the free open thinking to be able to focus as clearly as possible on your book when you can. If you only have 15 or 20 minutes a day to work on the book, make it the most focused moments of your day. If you can do that, good things are going to happen. If not, you're going to waste time and focus, and you're going to fall behind on your progress. One of the biggest problems I see with people who want to write their book is they just want to jump ahead. They don't want to take the time to get it right. They cut corners. They just want to publish their book and move forward. By doing that, you're depriving your story of the chance to be read and received properly. You're depriving readers the chance of really learning from something, to make sure that your story really connects to them and resonates, that they want to promote and market this thing alongside you, that they believe in this as much as you do. You need to take the time to get it right. Sometimes that means even working with professionals like professional editors. Take the time to get it right. If you rush, you're going to put out a book that doesn't quite connect, doesn't quite resonate the way you want it to, doesn't have the impact you want it to have. It's a missed opportunity. After all this work and all this effort, you don't want to flub it at the 5-yard line. You want to cross the finish line and feel empowered by that, So don't rush. Take your time to get it right. If you want to learn more about how do I write a book about myself, you'll definitely want to watch another episode that I recorded. I'll link to it on the screen. It's called What Are the First Steps in Writing a Book? In that video, I focus deeply on purpose. I focus on book foundation work. I focus on everything that you need to know before you type a single word in your book. Remember, a good book can change your life. I'm Dan Good. Thanks for watching.